It has been a while since I did a dog trainer reacts video. Nevertheless, I am coming out of the grave for what I think is a very meaningful conversation. I recently found this video by Joel Beckman. He and I take stylistically very different choices when it comes to training dogs. Nevertheless, when I was listening to his video, there were a lot of arguments that he made that I wholeheartedly agree with and that he's absolutely correct with. Where I think I can contribute to the discussion is in some of his analyses of what is scientific fact versus what is opinion. I don't believe that he does a very good job in that video of differentiating between scientific literature and what is his interpretation or what is the opinion of that literature. And in fact, he does tend to attack the academia, and I think that many of those attacks are justified. I think that many of the attacks that he makes make sense and are credible, and also I'd like to contribute to them and show how there's another flip side that's not being mentioned as well. So if you're new here, hello, my name is Jenna. I'm a professional dog trainer. I work exclusively with dogs facing anxiety and the behavioral consequences of anxiety, aggression, reactivity, separation anxiety, stereotypes, and other behavioral complications that come out of an anxiety disorder. The other thing you need to know about me going in is that I do take a very nerdier approach to dog training. I like to examine scientific research. We have an entire series on my channel called Science Explained. I understand that looking at the scientific literature is not everybody's jam. I totally get that. And also, I don't think that that means that we can't find common ground. I don't think that that means that this video can't be supportive for you. So without further ado, let's get into it.
And I got one today. And I get, it's not a terrible comment. It just encompasses what the purely positive reinforcement trainers think.
I don't believe that he believes that we all identify as purely positive. In fact, positive reinforcement comes from operant conditioning. It's one of 4 quadrants, and it is impossible to exist purely in one quadrant. Life doesn't exist in one box, and I think he knows this. Within our culture, we do not identify as purely positive, and I'm sure he knows this.
Okay, so this is from Kat Rogers. Okay, it's since been deleted, but I'm going to talk you through this comment, and we're going to go over some things. So she says, "This is completely disgusting, and the entire philosophy of this trainer is wrong. Actual behaviorist and certified trainers through CPDT is what it's called. It's like Certified Pet Dog Trainers Association, okay? Use people like this as an example of what not to do at national conferences." So here's what I think we should do. Have me there and let's discuss it. Have me on up there with your best expert and let's talk about this. All right, and show the video to all the Karens in the audience. And they're all Karens. All the purely positive folks who go to all these conferences and read all these books, they're all single, white, childless women. Okay, and none of those are bad. You can be all those things. But don't act like you know everything and shame other people. If you haven't gone through the raising a child process, and none of them have. They're all the same people. They don't understand discipline and love, and they think that their dogs are their children and there's no rules and everything's positive. They don't understand life.
Okay, so a couple of things on this. He's absolutely correct that the positive reinforcement majority are white women that are older than millennials. Let's put it that way. 100% true. And in fact, when I get around some of my peers that are in the same age group as I am, and we are collaborating on dog training methods and conferences and whatever, we talk about the fact that our culture is dominated by older white women. We need more diversity. That said, the idea that one needs to be a parent in order to understand the concepts of love and discipline, I take issue with that. If hypothetically one was incapable of having children, should that mean that they are not also able to teach others how to live with a dog and have a relationship with a dog? I take issue with the implication that if I'm not able to have children, I'm also not able to make a career out of transferring my skill of understanding dogs to others. There's a lot of implications there. That said, the professional, he was saying, like, take me to the conference and put me up there with your best expert. My friend, we have several experts and not all of them are white women. In fact, many of the experts are men, quite frankly. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why that is. Primarily, it's the way the outside society, outside of dog training, views men and their power. So a lot of the experts that you're speaking about are not even women, ironically. In our world, we have Michael Shakashia, we have Dr. Chris Packel, we have Jim Crosby, we have Ken McCourt, all of whom are wonderful brains, and they're men. By the way, the same can be true about his ecosystem as well. When we're thinking about who is leading the sphere of aversive or alpha pack or balanced training, we all know the popular YouTube channels, the popular TV shows are men, and they're macho men generally speaking. And that is not a dog training issue. That is not a dog training cultural issue. That is a bigger scale issue. That speaks and reflects more on how our society on the whole views men and their ability to lead. So again, the same stereotypes that he is imposing on the positive reinforcement community, we can double down and reverse back on him and say other stereotypes can also equally exist in your group.
She doesn't understand life. She's basically saying, oh, we use people like you at our annual conferences.
By the way, I have never been to a conference where they took examples of aversive trainings or methods that they don't agree with and said, this is not what I've never seen that. I'm not saying it never has. I've personally been to many different academic events. That's never happened in any of the events I've been to.
Dominance theory has been widely discredited. All the purely positive folks comment and they say it's been widely discredited. And almost, not every time, but I'll occasionally go and I'll type in dominance theory. And I do it fairly often. And I don't see where it's discredited. And they go, yeah, the guy who coined the phrase, he took it back. And I go, okay, great. How do I find this? Where do I find this guy saying that it's actually not true? The guy who originally started and wrote a book about it years ago, they say he took it back. I can't find it anywhere. I don't know who this guy is.
Okay, so by the way, I've linked it in the description box below. You can check it out. But there's a couple things on this. The reason you can't find the person who took back dominance theory is because he didn't take back dominance theory. He took back alpha theory. There's a big difference. So let's break this down. The guy that you're asking about, his name is David Mech, and he wrote a book in the 1970s examining alpha behavior, what he called at the time alpha behavior in a pack of wolves. By 2000, he wrote another paper. By the way, the book and the paper are linked in the description box. You can check the link. I've got you. The paper in 2000 came out and was like, actually, my initial interpretation of what is happening here was incorrect. It's not so much that there aren't leaders in a social network. There's not so much that there's not a leader inherent, let's call it alpha for the sake of this conversation, in a network of wolves, but they are not fighting for this role of alpha. What he took back was that there is no fight to be an alpha within a pack of wolves. That is what he rescinded. However, it's true that he doubles down in this paper and says that there is an inherent alpha role in parents, a male and a female, being an alpha over their pups, that he demonstrates through his studies that is inherently existing. And that's really where it's key, is that he is implying in that particular paper that we're speaking on, David Mech implies that the role of alpha goes to the male and female parents inherently, that by nature of the equation, they are dominating the group. Not that they have fought for it and therefore they have it. It is just an assumed role that everybody follows in line with. What he's talking about with dominance, the thing with this is that, again, researchers have not taken back dominance. This is something that the positive reinforcement community gets incorrect all the time. He is correct. The reason he's confused about the argument is because historically, the positive reinforcement community has not conveyed the fact of reality of dominance and alpha. Number one, David Mech did say that he maintains the role or the word alpha in his literature. He just attributes it and interprets it differently depending on in what context you're reading or what text you're reading. He's going to interpret it one way in 1970, and then by the time 2000s roll around, he takes that back and says, actually, I've interpreted it incorrectly. It's this way. Now, when it comes to dominance, the thing is dominance has a viable place in ethological ecological behavior and ethological sciences. Dominance is a thing that scientists talk about. By the way, not just when it comes to dogs, not just when it comes to wolves, when it comes to animals, we use this term dominance. So the reason he's confused is because we have positive reinforcement trainers out there who are incorrectly stating that dominance is bad or dominance is not real, and that's just not true. When you talk to a scientific researcher, they're very clear that indeed there is a concept of dominance occurring. Now, the problem is that alpha dog trainers are misinterpreting what dominance is. They have almost bastardized the word. That is the argument. What they say is that, and again, all my resources are linked down below. What they say is that dominance is primarily revolved around who maintains a resource in a group. So who is maintaining the resource? So for this, we can talk about a parent, since he wants to talk about moms and babies, let's talk about moms and babies. A mom is going to control when a baby sleeps, where a baby sleeps, when a baby eats, what a baby eats. A mom is going to control when a baby wakes up and when a baby goes anywhere to see grandma. Mom controls the resources of baby. But to imply that baby is aware or has the ability to fathom that hierarchical structure is incorrect. They simply do not have the ability at that age, and in this case dogs do not have the ability, their structural brains literally are incapable of understanding the hierarchical structure as they say it does. So what they can observe, what dogs are aware of, is consequences. They are aware of cause and effect, right? Mom has access to food, she puts down the bowl, therefore cause and effect, right? I eat. They are able to understand a sequential event, but what they are not going to necessarily be able to understand is the desire or the need to dominate a resource. This is the difference between higher order and lower order thinking, and what we need to examine here would be comparative cognition. The thing is that comparative cognition, the field of comparative cognition within science, is a very complicated field. Again, it comes back down to what he's talking with purely positive. You cannot pick an idea and put it strictly in one box. You cannot pick a concept, a topic, and put it just in one label, just in one box. And so is true when it comes to dominance. You cannot say that dominance is purely a lower order thing or purely a higher order thing. It can be both. The difference is that the dogs don't have both. So to imply that dogs are going to be able to be aware that there's this concept of dominance and therefore they need to strive to obtain it, that is a higher order thing. However, are they able to observe the sequential events that occur as a result of the phenomena of dominance? Yes. Now, I know I've just word vomited a whole lot on you in a short period of time. If you are seriously interested in delving into the idea of dominance and what the scientific literature knows about it, I did an entire video on it 2 years ago. Yes, the video is a little grainy. The content and the resources are still there. I have linked it in the description box below as well. All of the citations are listed. They are not just like Joe's dog training journal, by the way. They are scientific papers. They are peer-reviewed papers. They are reviews. The thing is that when we're thinking about scientific literature, there is an argument, there is a debate on the importance of dominance and dominance theory within even the scientific ethological perspective, yes? The thing is that it's sort of like the idea of global warming where 97% of scientists are all on the same page, and then you have this 3% that are arguing that global warming is not true. So it's like, that is basically true for dominance theory as well. The vast majority, I don't think there's a statistical number, so let's just say arbitrarily 97% of people, 97% of the scientific researchers and academic field agree that the dogs are not aware of dominance and are not striving to obtain it because that would be a higher order concept. However, there is a small minority, a 3%, let's say, that are on the flip side that are like, they're certainly on it. And in fact, they think it's a personality trait, that dominance is a personality trait that one has. like planning and like being, you know, organized, that they, in the same way that one is boisterous, they are also dominant. That is the flip side, but it is the minority opinion. So here's the thing. It's an opinion, yes. It's not scientific fact. So can you be on that minority end? If you want to place yourself in that minority opinion, my friend, go for it. Like, do it. Knock yourself out. And also be aware that you're in the minority, and it's probably best for you to tell your 300,000 followers that you're in the minority as well. It's probably best for you to tell everybody, hey, 97% of researchers don't think that the dogs are aware of dominance, but 3% do, and that's the side I'm going with. So it's a matter of opinion, you pick your side. That is how the argument should be presented, not necessarily like, I don't know where this is coming from. It's a complete mystery. I just don't know. My friend.
I don't really care if you call it dom. I don't really care what we call it. Let's come up with another name, purely positive, folks. Let's come up with another name for the behavior of a dog saying, I'm gonna do whatever I want with you, human.
Okay, I love a good philosophical debate about what is in a word. I could go on a whole video just about how do we come up with words. So yeah, let's call it, you're right, you're right. It doesn't matter what we call it. We could call it blue, we could call it yellow. Like, the word itself doesn't matter. Let's call it what we want. But your interpretation, where you say, what do we call it when a dog says, I'm going to do whatever I want with you, human? That, my friend, is implying intent. That, my friend, is implying function. That is unscientific. What we can see, and again, this is where positive reinforcement also goes awry. Okay, positive reinforcement community is equally guilty of this, where they see a behavior and they're like, oh my God, he yawned, it's stress. And it's like, behavior is objective, always. It is not until you give context to the behavior, you see the behavior repeated in a series of reoccurring moments. It is not until there's ample information around the behavior that we can start to interpret what it means. But the thing is that interpretation is always opinion. Interpretation of behavior is always our best guess. And so when you say, what do we say about a dog who is just saying, I'm going to do whatever I want with you, human? What you are saying is that when you look at dogs, you see that dogs are asking, I'm going to do whatever I want with you. That is opinion. That is an interpretation. That is one interpretation. And you can ask 500 different trainers and they're going to give you 500 different interpretations of that behavior.
It's not aggression. Dominance, aggression are totally different things.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, 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 and more yes. I'm so glad he said that. 1,000,000%. Dominance and aggression are not the same thing. Facts. That is like objective truth in the scientific literature. No matter where you are in the scale of opinions, you agree that aggression and dominance are not the same thing. Thank you for saying that.
All these positive reinforcement people write books and they say it's discredited. I don't care if Patricia McConnell says it's discredited. That doesn't matter to me. Patricia McConnell isn't day-to-day with 20 dogs over the last 15 years. She's writing books and she's writing articles. She's not in the trenches. None of these people are. But there is a behavior of the dog saying, yeah, I'm going to do with you whatever I want. I call it dominance, you call it something else, but let's agree that the behavior happens.
No, we can't agree that the behavior happens. What you're talking about is not objective fact. It is opinion. It is interpretation. It is one perception of an event. So we can't all agree that the perception is occurring because we all have different lenses.
If we don't agree the behavior happens, we don't agree on anything. You haven't been around enough dogs.
Or perhaps you've been around your perspective of dogs so long that it's the only perspective you can see. And this is kind of what you were saying with like, well, they're all reading books, they're not in the trenches, they're not seeing the dogs, you know, a dozen times a day, da 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 da. It's like, you have a cognitive bias, my friend. And until you're aware of that, until you're aware that you are only looking through one set of eyes and you only are operating in your mind alone, and that there are other perspectives outside of yours that are seeing things differently, interpreting things differently, until you can see that, you are not living to your fullest potential, and you're not serving the animals and their guardians in their fullest potential either.
Read some books. Dogwise is a great publishing company. All positive. Dogwise is all purely positive.
So yes, that's true. Dogwise is very a niched publishing company. If one is opposed to having such a niched publishing company, there is plenty of other literature that has nothing to do with Dogwise. That's one of the reasons why I prefer to just go straight to the peer-reviewed paper. I prefer to go straight to the scientific literature instead of doing the workaround. It's like a game of telephone, right? And that's basically what happened, by the way, with this whole idea of dominance and alpha, and the whole confusion that he's talking about happened because of the game of telephone. Someone said something to someone who said something to someone who said something to someone, and by the end of it, no fact was credible, no fact was true. And so sometimes our positive reinforcement books and content and conferences are like a big game of telephone, and it loses the integrity of the research. It loses the integrity of the information. That is why my entire channel is premised around going straight to the source and just reading the peer review paper and talking with the researchers straight on.
They always go, you should read more books, you should go to more conferences, you should go to more online schools. It's all learning. It's not dogs. It's like some dude or some company has been drilling oil wells and knows how to do it and has the art and the science of doing it. And then some guy gets out of college and goes, oh, you're doing it all wrong. Oh, have you ever dug an oil well? The guy and the college kid goes, well, no, but I learned in school how to. You don't know anything. They know nothing. It's like academia versus the real world. That's what this is.
I actually agree with him to a certain extent. I think that the positive reinforcement world can be very cliquey. You hear the same ideas just regurgitated in 1,500 different ways. It can be very repetitive. It can have a very us versus them mentality. And for those reasons, I have decided to not maintain some of the certifications they promote, like the CPDT. I don't maintain that certification because of that clique mentality. And a lot of times, even their continued education, when they talk about like the CEUs are all within their realm of what they consider to be credible. And it's like, there's an entire world of very important literature occurring that doesn't have anything to do with their little cliquey unit. And so he's right that like in many cases we see dog trainers that get stuck in the learning realm. And this is coming from someone, by the way, who is a self-professed nerd. This is coming straight from the words of anyone who has been on my channel knows I love to read. I love to learn. I love to study. I love to everything. And I understand that that's all for naught if you can't apply it practically with dogs. It's all for naught if you can't transfer that information to guardians, right? So I agree with him, but the thing that I disagree with him is that he says academia versus real world. It's not an or, it's not a verse. It's an and, it's a both. You need academia and real world. You need academia and studying dogs observationally. He talks about how like a lot of these researchers are just in their labs. They're not actually dog trainers. And the thing is obviously, like that's how science works, bruh. Do you think every single medical doctor who does surgery is also going to labs and doing all of the experiments as well? Like our world works that way. There is, of course, certain demographics. There are, of course, certain individuals who do both the research and the practical implementation with the individual at home. There are, of course, unicorns in the universe that do both, but they are seldom, they are rare. But the way the world works is that there's a difference between the people doing the research and the people implementing. The reason we have both is so that the researchers can stay objective. The researchers can say, look, we've done all this. Here's the facts. Now it's your job to interpret it. We can give suggestions. We can give opinions on what we think the interpretations of these facts should be. But really, y'all are on the ground floor doing the work. Y'all need to be interpreting. It is a both conversation. You saying like, oh, the researchers are all in the labs. The researchers are all writing. They're not actually with the dogs. That's not the gotcha that you think it is. That's just how the world works. That's just how science works.
And they think it's crazy that I call them out on their answer is read more books. You know where I learned more? 15 years of having thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs on my property and going to thousands of homes and teaching thousands of group classes and doing thousands of privates out here with aggressive dogs.
Again, you have a cognitive bias, my friend, and I'm not trying to discredit your observations because those are important. Again, this goes back to and. When you're speaking with this, when you're saying like, oh, I've worked with 1,000 dogs and thousands of classes and blah, 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 you're revealing a lot of your values, which I can really appreciate. And sharing publicly that you believe in practical implementation rather than just theoretical. And that is beautiful. I value you giving that opinion publicly because I don't think enough people do. And I wish that you would say that it's an opinion, right? I wish that you would confront that it doesn't mean that you're right. It means that that's your perspective. And just because it's your perspective doesn't mean that it's better or less than, right? So I hear a lot of conversations in the dog training world about, the difference between practical and theoretical learning. And again, it's not an or thing, it's a both thing. It's not that you need theoretical or practical, it's that you need theoretical and practical, like of course, right? So that said, there are going to be certain individuals, certain personality types that are going to lean and naturally gravitate towards more one or the other. That doesn't mean one person is better than the other. Personally, I've always, my entire life, apart from even dog training, I've always been able to fathom concepts theoretically way better than when I was actually in the trenches doing it real live. And this is because when I was doing anything, whether that was learning how to change a tire or when I was trying to solve a math problem on paper or when I was doing anything, even training a dog, I became anxious. I would overanalyze, my heart rate would accelerate, I felt my body go into a fight, flight, or freeze, I became anxious, and I cannot operate safely, and I cannot think critically in that state. And even to this day, if I'm reading a book and a person is laying out a story, an anecdotal example of whatever theory they're talking about, that is harder for me to understand. The anecdotal story is harder for me to understand than if they just said the principle outright and said, this is the theory. I can understand that theory better. Again, that doesn't make me less than you because you learn by practical implementation. That doesn't make you a better trainer. That doesn't make you a better person or a better studier or a better whatever. It makes you different, and that's okay. That's all right. But to discredit an entire philosophy or practice on studying theoretically and then going out and implementing, to say that that is inaccurate or unjust is just naive.
All those ladies I was talking about, by the way, in these conferences and read these books and comment, I mean, they all read the same stuff. They all, and they have no clients. If clients call them, they don't call them back, because there's no real solutions. And now people can get on YouTube and they can go, oh, well, I saw this one guy just help this dog and he met his dog and he's better now. And they're like, no, you have to go 50 feet away and treat your dog. YouTube is the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing because he's absolutely right. As I mentioned before, the positive reinforcement world is very cliquey and they're all reading the same books and they're all like, yeah, yes, and more yes. And I would argue that YouTube is sensationalizing and dramatizing dog aggression and dog behavior. Yes, it is making it like a show. And again, as a matter of opinion, some people are gonna like that, some people aren't. Personally, I don't see it as a show. That to me, showing dogs get into a fight and then you standing in the middle and separating them is the equivalent to watching like Real Housewives flip a table in the middle of a restaurant. Like, it's drama, it's snappy, it's, you can throw some amazing music behind it. And if you find that entertaining, I mean, go for it, like go off, But that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody wants that. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's even required. One does not need to have a big show and flip a dog overnight into 22 minutes. We can condense this dog into being a biting dog into a dog that's on the floor in a downstay in 22 minutes. Like, that is so, we have to assume that our audience are smarter than that. Again, I guess that's just how I'm operating. Again, out of integrity, this is a matter of opinion, right? But I assume that guardians are more intelligent than people who are watching the videos for the sensationalism, right? I assume that the people watching my content especially are critical thinkers. and are going to be able to see you stand in the middle of two dogs and split them up in the middle of a dog fight with you just being like a macho man, and are gonna say, is that real reality? Is that needed? Is that drama? Or is that what's actually healthy? Our critical thinkers are gonna be able to think about that. And the other thing is that like, I just think it's worth saying that credibility cannot be reflected by numbers of views. Credibility, and for that matter, efficacy, so how many clients a trainer has and how many results they're getting, is not going to be reflected by how many views they have on a YouTube video. I'm sorry. No, it is naive to assume that. And again, we need to assume that the audience is critical thinkers and that they know that. We have to go in assuming that the world is not made of stupid people, that the world is made up of really actually intelligent people that are going to be able to fish through what is actual effectiveness and what is something that has gotten a lot of views. Those are two different things.
It's done. Yeah, I'm not going to read any more books. I have a lot of books. When I started the business, I read books. Now I train dogs. That's it.
When I started the business, I read a lot of books, and now I train dogs. Thank you for sharing your opinion. That is not how many people are operating, because many people are operating with the idea that there's no way for me to know everything. Many people, trainers and otherwise, are operating out of, there is no way in my lifetime that I will ever know everything there is to know about dog behavior, but I can certainly try. And I can certainly try to continue my education. I can work with dogs practically and continue my education. I can work with dogs practically and make observations and have epiphanies and have beliefs about what I'm seeing in dogs, and also continue to read books, continue to read peer-reviewed papers, continue to study, continue to learn. I would argue that money is better well spent with someone who appreciates what they don't know than with someone who assumes they know everything. And with that, if you guys enjoyed this video, you guys can hit like, consider subscribing if you enjoy a nerdier approach, check out these other videos, and I'll see you guys next week.